Hey everyone, we're going to get started here. Welcome to our advanced workshop called in Identifying the Drivers of Chronic Illness. Stress. Stress being one of the many components that can drive chronic illness, but it is far and away one of the most important ones. 70% of annual deaths in the United States are now due to chronic disease. Only 6% of Americans are metabolically healthy, and 6 in 10 adults in the US have a chronic disease. Now, these are some definitely wake up statistics. We have our work cut out for us in this country of turning around health. I hope to give some suggestions and ideas that can help us to take steps in our own lives and those of our families to help us to avoid some of these outcomes. What are some of those chronic illnesses? Well, they're very commonly known: heart disease, stroke, type 2 diabetes, obesity, and cancer. I believe only 5% of cancers are considered genetic, and the other 95%, according to the American Cancer Society, are considered lifestyle and environmentally driven. So, do you or your grandparents, your parents or your grandparents, or siblings even have poor health? Do you worry about how your current lifestyle may be setting you up for poor future health? If you just look around in your family, do you see good health? Are they vibrant and active and living the way they want to into their later years? I didn't see that or haven't seen that in my family. There's a couple of star performers as they got into their 70s and but not too many in their 80s. If you watched the recent show on Netflix, the Blue Zones lifestyle, that was impressive to see these people from around different parts of the world living well into their 80s and 90s in a very active way, some to 100, being very active. And those are incredible examples that we'd all, I think anybody would love to be able to have their last years of their life be active and be fully in participation of what's going on in their families and what's going on around them. In my own life, I had quite a struggle about 2015 where I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's thyroiditis, an autoimmune condition that, according to the scientists, you never get rid of. So it is considered a chronic illness. But because of the lifestyle changes I've made, I'm basically unaffected by it right now. I have to change my diet and have to change some of the things that are triggers for me. But I want to show you that as an example myself, that it is possible to do this and to change your lifestyle, change your health from the inside out. So where are we all in this health journey? Well, there's something called the illness and wellness continuum. On the left, you can see there's basically premature death or chronic illness or 0% life. And on the right side, in the blue side of the arrow, there's 100% life. But the problem is that too many people live in the zero, in the middle zone, the comfort zone, which we call false wellness. And you're not necessarily aware of which direction you're heading, but I can tell you that if you look down under where it says neutral, where there's no symptoms, and if our nutrition is inconsistent, our exercise is sporadic, our health is not a high priority, and we're not really paying attention to what our body needs and giving it what it needs on a regular basis, chances are our health is heading towards the symptomatic side, the poor health side, and eventually getting a label called a disease. We cannot free fall in this universe and go up. Any free falling state means that we're going to be heading down towards disarray. We have to put energy into the system, energy and work into our body in order to maintain our body. And that goes with anything in life. If you want a relationship to stick around a long time and be healthy, you have to put time and energy into it. If you want your lawn to be well cared for and look like a golf course, you have to take time to weed it and feed it. Um, those examples are abundant. So just look at this and think, which direction do you want to head? And what are you doing today to help you move up that arrow? Become aware of the body whispers. I love this idea of body whispers that are signaling declining health. For example, like, do we have very light sleep and have a hard time falling asleep? Are we fatigued? Do we have aches and pains? Do we lose our hair more than we expect? Are we irritable, anxiety full, and depressed? Do we have poor focus? Do we have blood sugar fluctuations? Like if you didn't eat a meal, do you have blood sugar low, blood sugar crash? Or if you ate a meal, do you feel like you need to take a nap every time? Do you have imbalances in your hormones or overall poor performance? Intolerance of bright lights and noises, and you feel like you need to, turn off the radio every time you're trying to follow directions in your car? Do you have GI issues like food sensitivities, a difficult time losing weight, abnormal menstrual cycles, cravings for salt and sugar, and frequent headaches? All these could be caused by different things, but generally those are signs that our health is not going in the right direction. They may be common, but they're not normal. It's really important to make that distinction. Chronic stress-related illnesses are the most common reason for visits to the primary care doctors. And their chronic stress is associated with several health conditions, such as heart disease, anxiety, depression, pain and inflammation, fatigue, digestive disorders, brain degeneration and memory disorders, diabetes, cancer, particularly breast tumor development, hormonal imbalances, autoimmunity, and immunosuppression. What our current medical system is really good at is giving us a pill for every ill. And some of these pills can be quite powerful. They can shut down systems in our body, shut down biomechanical or biochemical pathways, and lead to radical shutdowns of certain symptoms. But at what cost? These are not pills that are really food. They are pills that are designed to very specifically treat a symptom or a chemical pathway. And unfortunately, there are so many side effects to doing this because our body is an integrative system. And what we really need to do, as far as generating health, is look at the underlying cause and drivers of health. And that's why we use this model. We use a tree of life. You can see the elaborate root systems, the strong trunk, and then all the big branches that lead to the leaves and the expression of life at the green leaves at the top. That is a flow that happens and it also cycles back. You can't see how the leaves are flowing back down and feeding the roots again. But our body is a cycle of input and output. What comes in from our environment and our lifestyle feeds us and helps us to generate the conditions of health and balance and homeostasis. If you elaborate that model a little more, you look at lifestyle and environment or at the root systems, we perceive all of that input through our sensory system and figure out what to do with it. Our spinal cord carries that information from our sensory system up through our spine, up to our brain, and then our brain then in turn controls our systems, our organs, and our cells. And that is how our body works. So it's a cycle of input and output. And as we go through this flow, we want to make sure that there's no blockages or deficiencies in that system. Now, looking at that lifestyle a little more carefully, how we move, how we eat, and how we think are all nutrients. Those all come in ideally from on a daily basis in sufficient quantities of what we need and purity without toxins and obviously without deficiencies. But what happens is if we're looking at stress and the drivers of chronic illness, we have physical stress, we have chemical stress, and emotional stress. If you flip that around, we can move well, eat well, and think well. But today we're going to talk about these different types of stressors. We often are conditioned to think about emotional stress, but chemical stress and physical stress also stimulate the brain in a way that tells it that we're under threat. And if we're under chronic threat, then we start to create an overall pattern in our body. So, what are some examples of physical stresses? Well, they're obvious to you if you think about it. Poor posture and spinal alignment, injuries from sports or auto crashes, slips or falls, excess sitting, lack of exercise, lack of mobility. In the chemical stress department, dysglycemia. What does that mean? That means high or low blood sugar levels. And really, we want it to be in a normal, healthy range. Too low, and we're running low on energy. Too high, and we're flooded with the sticky sugar that actually can lead to clogging up our arteries and lead to basically that sleepy feeling after we eat. etc., and lead to also weight gain because having that blood sugar level too high, we need to store it away and restore that number, that level in our blood. And how we store it away is by creating and storing it as fat cells. Leaky gut. Leaky gut is a term that has been widely shared. Really, it's a byproduct of inflammation from foods and environmental triggers and toxins. We might have difficulty detoxing, maybe because of a sluggish liver. We can have some genetic issues with regard to how our liver functions, hormonal imbalances, and then vascular or oxygen defects, like from anemia or clogged arteries. On the emotional stress side, that's also pretty easily understood. Work stress, financial difficulties, toxic relationships. We're not able to communicate well, or you're not able to connect, you're not able to find mutual benefit and growth in a relationship, and or direct negative contribution from one person to another. Family dynamics, poor self-esteem, or unhealed childhood traumas. All these stressors can lead to a wind-up phenomena called stress wind-up. Our brain can start to get the sense that, hey, our environment is toxic, our environment is unhealthy, and our environment is a threat to us. Whether it's one of those stressors or a combination of all three, typically we see it's a combination of all three that don't get addressed. And over time, we shift further and further in what's called sympathetic dominance. But stress windup is an easier way to understand it, and that's what we'll use today. Stress windup causes blown fuses. What does that mean? Well, if you put too many cables or cords into an outlet, after a while, that outlet can't handle it anymore, and it blows a fuse, and that affects the whole room. If that happens in our body, too much stress input leads to a shutdown. And when it happens in the nervous system, our structure can break down and our structure can shut down as well, blocking that nerve pathway further. So if you see in this image here, that area where the red is, let's just call that when there's healthy, normal posture and healthy inputs of stress, we can handle it. But when we start to lose our posture, we have too much toxin, we have too much emotional stress, our body cannot handle it, and it starts to lock that area down because it's more burden than the body can handle, and it blocks the energy flow. So it becomes this pattern that leads to further breakdown. Let's look at this. How does this happen? How does this affect the whole body? Well, look at this patient. This is an example actually of the patient who showed healing when they regained their posture. They saw these changes on the right. You can see neck pain was better, acid reflux was better, GI function and shoulder pain were better. So just to give you an idea of how the spinal pathway and those blockages that happen there really do affect how the body works, not just in terms of the spine, but where those spinal nerves connect. Again, talking about how this cycle unfolds, we have a stress windup pattern that leads to adaptive physiology. Stress windup is kind of like traffic, or if you take your stressed out self into traffic, maybe you drive in an erratic way and you cause people to brake and stop and slow down. Now we have traffic. That's adaptive physiology. That's kind of like your body starting to shift into adrenal firing, where you have adrenaline and cortisol raising in your bloodstream. Now you're starting to raise your heart rate, raise your blood pressure. I'm adapting to an environment that's stressful. That leads to subluxations, blown fuses. It's more than I can handle. Now, if I have a traffic jam, we have to take the side streets, and the side streets are not going to be as efficient or effective as the main highway. And over time, that leads to less efficient physiology, less efficient transit from point A to point B. That leads to more stress windup. You get the idea. Over time, this leads to a progressive breakdown in our health because we're spending a lot of time in things that are not really necessary for the building and maintenance of our body's functions. So let's take some action. What can we do? As a chiropractor, my main point is get under regular chiropractic care. Why? Because our brain controls everything in our body, and it does so by sending energy and signals and communication to and from the organs via the spinal cord. And the spinal cord is protected by the spine, and the spine and spinal cord are intimately connected And when we have stress burdens that exceed our ability to handle them, we start to break down and shut down. So let's go into these individual areas. Move well. Take care of your posture. Start looking at how can you get into healthy posture when you're at work. If you're sitting, make sure that your head is pulled back in your chair and over your shoulders. Make sure you move your body every day. If you don't move it, you'll lose it. The joints in your body need daily exposure to full range of motion activity. To the extent that you don't use a joint in its full range of motion, you'll start to decrease your flexibility. Strengthen your heart muscle. That means raising your heart rate intentionally with cardio exercise. Just getting out and moving, even if it's a brisk walk, is really good. But if you can challenge it and like say you did some stairs, you did some hill walking, and you start to feel your breath get a little bit more challenged, and you had a difficult time carrying on a typical conversation. So let's say you're talking with somebody, you're walking with them, and now as I'm talking, I have a difficult time getting all the words out. Like that's where you should get to when you're working out. If you're not having any of that challenge, your body isn't pushed out of its comfort zone. So if you're not in out of, if sorry, if you're not out of your comfort zone, then you're not going to expand your ability to handle that new zone. So that's kind of a rule of thumb when it comes to working out. You have to push your body out of what it's comfortable with in order for your brain to just to create the signals and the direction to say, now raise your ability to handle that environment. Okay. So when you do your workouts, make sure you're getting out of your comfort zone. That goes for overall strength workouts. Make sure you're lifting heavy stuff and you minimize your sitting. A lot of people have to sit with work or what have you, and students in school. I get it. But if you can minimize it by taking breaks and get into extension, I'll talk about that in a second, but opening your body up, bringing your arms and your shoulders back, bringing your head back, arching your neck backwards, you need to be able to reverse that flexed forward head position because that's what ends up happening when we look down at phones, look down at computers, and look down on a desk all day long. Let's talk about eat well. In the eat well category, it's important to hydrate. Most people forget this one basic thing. They're thinking about organic foods and eating more vegetables and plant matter. Wonderful. But make sure you hydrate. You should go to the bathroom. You should pee 2 times per day, bladder bursting pees, meaning, and it's like you're so full, you got to go and eliminate that clear transparent pee. If it's yellow, it means you didn't dilute enough, you didn't have enough cleansing water to clear out your body. So that's just a comment on hydrating adequately. Um, Whole foods, organic foods, locally sourced foods, ideally. Whole foods mean if you look at the ingredient list, there's one ingredient. Try to get more dark leafy greens like kale, collard greens, Swiss chard, rainbow chard, and spinach. Even arugula is good. Also, cruciferous vegetables. These are amazing at helping support your liver and its detoxification abilities. Eliminate food sensitivity. Some things are very obvious to you. If you have a food sensitivity, you may know. Common ones are gluten, which is found in wheat products, and rye and barley. Some other things are like dairy. Some people have issues with peppers, tomatoes, corn, soy. So keep an eye out for things you might be sensitive to. If you have questions about that, please ask me. I really know this subject matter well. It's something that I have to navigate myself. Work on detoxing your home in addition to yourself, meaning look out for new furniture, new carpet. Make sure you aerate the house well because those things give off gases. Make sure that you're not spraying things that have a skull and crossbones on the label. If it's that way, you live in your own fish tank. And if you were a fish and you sprayed things in your fish tank in your aquarium, you'd be swimming in it all day long. So think about your home as your fish tank. Intermittent fasting is one of the best ways to help you with your health. And what I recommend is starting off by delaying your breakfast every day by 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, and try to work your way up to about 10, 11, noon, and ideally up to about a 16-hour gap from dinner to breakfast. You might be calling it lunch at that time because it's okay, it's 12, it's lunch, but you can still have eggs. You can have your breakfast foods at noon. And why that's so important is because it gives the body a chance to clean house. If you're going to work out in the morning, that's a different story. If you work out on an empty stomach, you might have a challenge, especially if it's going to be a challenging workout. You might need to have a little something before the workout and then eat your breakfast right after your workout. So you give your body a chance to rebuild. But what that would mean is you would do your fasting before that meal. So you'd go back a progressively larger amount of time, 12 hours, 13 hours, 14 hours. So you still have that benefit of a fast before you eat that meal. And it's just really important that we give our body a break to repair. Another version of that is to not do that larger day to day 16-hour gap from dinner to breakfast, but you can do it once a week where you have like a 24-hour fast, or instead of a 24-hour water only fast, you do something like a modified fast where you would have like 500 calories. So it'd be a lighter meal of some protein, some fat, and some minimal carbs, something whole grain or something like a sweet potato. We can talk about that more in detail if you'd like to learn more about it. And the last category, think well. When it comes to helping you to address chronic stress, we need to go internal. We need to go inside and realize what is the signal, what is the vibration of my body in response to the environment that I am in. Am I nervous? Am I stressed out all the time? If you feel this urgency, if you feel this pressure day in and day out, then all of your cells are eavesdropping, as Deepak Chopra said. They're all eavesdropping on your thoughts. All your cells are going to be stressed out too. And how long can you stay in that mode until your body systems just become used to being in stress mode? That's not a good recipe for a long and healthy life. So go internally and think about what are the signals that I'm giving my body? Do some prayer, do some meditation, and get yourself balanced, connecting to a higher power, connecting to your inner knowing, your inner self, the universe, however you connect to some your calm state, your calm place, your inner power. There's a lot of ways that people look at it, and it's just important to make sure you find balance and you have that place to go to and that mode to go to that'll help you to reset. Practice your self-talk. Calm your own mind with encouraging and supportive self-dialogue. Talk about it with others. Share your stressors and your stressed thoughts. Share your woes. If it's financial issues, if it's relationship issues, make sure you communicate. Reconnect with your purpose every day. What are your goals? What's your life mission? If you don't know, then start writing them down and think about it. There's one great exercise I heard about yesterday. Talk to somebody else about two things. Who are you and who are you not? Take some time to write about that. Journal about it. Journaling to me is one of the best ways of getting yourself right, getting your mind right. Remember, it's all connected. Under your brain, under your hat, I should say, is this part of you that controls everything in your body. It's encased in bone. The only part of your body that's fully encased in bone is your brain. And then the only other part is your spinal cord, which carries all the messages from your brain out down your spine and out through all the nerves to every organ. So don't forget how everything's connected from the inside out. A deeper dive. Now, this is something we could take a separate webinar on each of these topics. Posture, work on your extension. We have an exercise called the YWTL. Ask me about that. I don't know if I can demonstrate it right here, but it's basically one where you do, instead of the YMCA, you do YWTL, and you're trying to pinch your shoulder blades back and look up so that you arch and extend your upper body. Look at doing a low inflammatory diet to help with food sensitivities. Email my office if you want to know what diet I recommend for that. Look at how you can help with sluggish digestion. One of the realities with chronic stress is that your digestion slows down. Make sure you eat or drink water 20 minutes before your meals. Try taking digestive enzymes if you're having a lot of indigestion. Um, add those digestive enzymes with your meals so you can support and supplement your own stomach's contribution to those digestive enzymes. Eliminate junk. Let's just get that out of the way. Anything that's packaged, processed, let's just get those things, those artificial foods out of our diet right now. Eat more kale, beets, garlic, and onions. Why? Because they support a healthy liver and your ability to detox. Adrenal fatigue, take some downtime. We were talking about this a little bit already, but take some downtime. Try to eliminate caffeine. I know it's not possible for everyone. If you have 1 cup of coffee a day, maybe two if you're a rock star and you can handle it, have green tea as an alternative. It'll lessen the demands on your adrenals because our adrenals get tired. And if we push those adrenals into action when we're tired, then we're driving them further into a fatigue zone and they have a more difficult time lessening our inflammation and giving us our get up and go. One of the functions of the adrenal glands, well, cortisol, is to help us to calm down inflammation. So if you find they're getting more inflamed with time and you get it more inflamed with stress, look no further than your adrenals. They're probably fatigued. Thyroid, the adrenals and the thyroid gland work together. They're both kind of like gas pedals. If your adrenals are pedal to the metal, you tend to see that the thyroid shuts down a little bit in compensation. Another reason why we'd have lower thyroid function is poor iodine intake. And in the United States, though, the number one reason for poor thyroid function is autoimmunity called Hashimoto's. I have that. That's something that I can talk to you more about if you feel like this fits you. Anxiety. Anxiety fits with this whole stress windup. When we start to see more and more threats in our environment, we become more sensitive to potential threats in addition to those existing perceived threats. It affects our gut. Our gut is where we make 95% of our serotonin. So if we take care of our gut, we can generate more serotonin. Probiotics will help with the gut and also taking care of your digestive process. Looking at thyroid is also very important for anxiety because fluctuations in thyroid can produce anxiety feelings. And also hormonal imbalances, looking at imbalances with estrogen production. Estrogen tends to go up once we have dominant stress patterns. Inflammation. Inflammation is regulated by several functions in the body. We talked about the role of the adrenals with inflammation. The prefrontal cortex of our brain also is responsible for shutting down inflammation in the body. That is something that is inhibited when the spine is unhealthy and has subluxations. So make sure you're getting adjusted to affect overall inflammation and lower that. Vitamin D, omega-3s, turmeric, and resveratrol are all great supplements to take to help with inflammation. Asthma, I grew up with asthma. Chiropractic was the first thing to help me with asthma, but I would also make sure that you help heal the gut and remove triggers to inflammation in your body as well. Autoimmunity is on the rise. It's definitely something we could talk about further. First of all, repair leaky gut, remove the triggers, and support overall adrenal function because when we're in chronic stress, our body gets in disarray and has issues maintaining order of which cells are ours and which cells are the enemy of like a bacteria or virus. And when we lose that ability to detect self from non-self, then the immune system can start to go after ourselves. And that's what an autoimmune condition is defined by. Any questions, please reach out and let's schedule a consultation. Also, you're invited to join us Tuesday nights for our weekly workshops in person at our office at 6 p.m. We'll be doing one tonight. So if you want to learn more about specifically our approach to chiropractic care incorporates not only the most advanced chiropractic technique in the profession called chiropractic biophysics, but we also blend it with functional medicine. And it's something that we find is very beneficial to helping patients to achieve healing from chronic illness and reverse these patterns that we're just talking about today. Any questions right now before we wrap it up?
Dr. Dave, hi, Karen Kerrigan.
Hi, Karen.
I have a question on, once you diagnose or see that sort of curve, if that's what you're calling it, right, in the spine or, that weight moving forward, I'm assuming then that exercise actually like can exacerbate, any type of pain that you might be feeling? Or, how does that work, if, you're still moving and exercising, but have that sort of problem, where you do have that curve and that weight. And do you understand what I'm asking?
Yeah. So if you have, one thing is to know in more detail, like in an ideal world, if I could say, it would be great to know what your curve pattern is so we know how to recommend exercises that can help you regain that proper curve, right? But the other part is if you have that curve and it's not in the ideal shape, let's say it's too rounded in the mid back and our head is too far forward, you have to be mindful of that. You're right when it comes to exercise because as you if you carry weight above that curve, then you have a risk of worsening the curve and further driving it out of its normal position. So the
Yeah, no,
easy,
and yeah, and I should have been more specific about, you know, thinking about vigorous exercise like running. Okay, so then that could probably exacerbate, is what you're saying.
yes, it can. And so if we're not in our proper biomechanical alignment, then any environment that we're carrying our weight, the weight of our body in gravity alone is enough to drive us further forward. If you look at, we talked about this before about text neck or tech neck, right? If you have that forward head position, just holding it there allows gravity to pull our head further forward. But if we added just the subtle jarring of running, that can have that effect of driving our head further forward if we're out of balance. But if our head is back over our shoulders, then running and walking is fine. It just depends on what position are we in and what posture are we reinforcing. Does that
Thank
help?
you. Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, so being aware of what is my posture, what is my alignment, um, it is critical because if you're going to build a building, let's say, and the foundation was off on the building, you know you're going to have repeated cracks in the walls, let's say in the second, third floor, over time, and look no further than the foundation of that building being unleveled to as far as the cause of why that building continues to have cracks and issues with aligning doors and windows above that. Um, so yeah, that is a very good question and a good point. Any other questions? If not, then I will wrap it up. Thank you all for attending. I appreciate you being here. We will do these on the first Tuesday of every month. If you have any specific topics that you'd like us to share, please reach out to us. Also, like I said, please reach out to our office if you want to schedule a consult or visit us on our weekly workshops on Tuesday nights. Thank you very much for being here, and we will see you soon.